Today on In Your Face Anatomy, we are looking at the scapula, aka the shoulder blade. It's really called scapula. They don't say shoulder blade in this class. So let's get into it. Good luck. Okay, the scapula. So first thing out of the gate, this is one of my favorite bones to ask about on the practical exam and the written test for that matter. There's just a lot of interesting features to it, so absolutely 100% make sure you're familiar with the scapula. All right, let's get into these features. So first thing we've got is the spine. So this is the spine of my scapula here. I'm going to sit it out like that, runs right along kind of the edge there before finishing off as this big rounded process. So we've got two processes here, this big thicker one and then the smaller, more subtle one. So this big thicker one, this is known as my acromion process. My acromion process. So my spine becomes my acromion process. That means this other one is the coracoid process. This is my coracoid process with a little piece of yellow on it, coracoid process. And I forgot what I was going to say. All right, so let's just keep going. Acromion process, coracoid process. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Don't confuse this with coronoid. Remember, the coronoid was the shark fin on the mandible. This is the coracoid. Coracoid. All right, so then we've got, if I jump back to the spine of my scapula, I've got my supraspinous fossa. So a fossa is just kind of a divot or an indentation where something else sits. And it could be another bone, it could be a bursa or a meniscus or a muscle. And in this case, it's for a muscle. This is going to be for supraspinatus, but it sits above the spine, which is what supraspinous means. So my supraspinous fossa sits above the spine. My infraspinous fossa is going to sit below the spine. So it's all about the spine here. The spine becomes my acromion. I've got my supraspinous fossa and my infraspinous fossa. And then if I flip it over, I've got my subscapular fossa. So this means under the scapula, subscapular, that's all it means, under the scapula. And so it's this fossa here where the subscapularis muscle is actually going to sit. And then lastly, with my scapula, I've got my glenoid fossa, or you may hear this as the glenoid cavity. So this is what actually forms part of my shoulder joint. So if I grab a humerus here, there's my humerus, look at that. We're going to plug it in here, and now I've made a shoulder joint. So we can see how this acromion process and the coracoid process work to just help protect that shoulder joint. By sticking the bone out, we're able to provide attachment points for a lot of ligaments that are going to come in here and just help encase and protect that entire shoulder joint. So the last thing we need to know about the scapula is this a right scapula or is this a left scapula? I don't know. How are we going to figure it out? Well, the scapula, of course, is your shoulder blade. We're all familiar with the shoulder blade. It's actually called the scapula. I've got a smooth side to it right here. You can see here on the underside. This is where my subscapular fossa is. This is my smooth side. On the other side, I've got the spine sticking up with all of its little ridges and bumps and bony parts to the bone. One side is going to rub against my rib cage. So I can have the smooth side rub against my rib cage, or I could have this rough side that's going to get snagged up on every single effing rib as I try to move my arm. Which side do we want against our rib cage? Well, of course, we want the smooth side. So I know this side has to go flat against my back. Then I have to plug in the humerus here. So this only works if this is a right scapula. The right scapula. So it's going to sit on here. Then my shoulder can plug in. Because if I try to make this a left scapula and stick it out to the side, then I've got like a third arm kind of growing out of the middle of my back. And that doesn't work. So this only works as a right scapula. So make sure you can tell left from right. Again, one of my favorites. Make sure you know it. Good luck.